Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Adam, thank you.
Okay, I think we are good to go.
He's the panelist. He's the third speaker of my panel. So we need to add him.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. This is it's now 4 p.m. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the AOGS-EGU Natural Hazards virtual meeting, the second day, 2 sessions today. My name's Adam Switzer. I am from the Asian School of the Environment and the Earth Observatory of Singapore, both at Nanyang Technological University. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you today to an afternoon of 2 great sessions on megacities and remote sensing and observations. So a couple of introduction things before we get started. This is part of an AOGS-EGU conference series, and we were intending to meet personally in Yogyakarta in Indonesia right now on this very day. But we're also planning to meet next year at this time in 2021 from the 19th to the 22nd of September at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Yogyakarta for a continuation of this AOGS-EGU conference series. And what we're doing today is we're running a virtual meeting, which is the second day of a 3-day activity. And we're trying to reach out to people to think about possible themes and discussion points that we could have included in our 2021 meeting. So it's really something we want you to participate in so that you can lead some of the thought discussion that goes into the development of our meeting that will be held in September 2021. So let's talk a little bit about, before I move in, I see people are still moving in, about yesterday. Yesterday we had a very successful day. We had more than 300 people in attendance, which is great. We had 2 sessions. This is a sort of word cloud of the things we talked about. These are the people that, the countries that attended, a very broad spread of countries that attended. And it's fantastic to see that a virtual conference like that has that sort of reach. The number of people, what people are doing, we've asked them to list that as well. It's great to see a lot of students there, students being in big letters, and professors and researchers from across the region, and a couple of people in consulting and other people in government. So pulling these people together is what we're really about here. And so today we're going to move to the second day of our program. Yesterday we talked about hazard development under changing climate. And we talked about human-induced natural hazards and technological hazards and disasters. Those of you with us yesterday, we're going to do things a little bit different today. We did things a little bit differently yesterday. And today we're going to have 2 sessions, theme 3 and theme 4. The first will be natural hazards in the megacity, and theme 4 will be remote observation, monitoring for natural hazard forecasting and response. Quite a mouthful. So a few guidelines here. We're going to have 2 sessions. It's going to be a little bit different with each one, but guidelines for using the Zoom webinar. The panelists will be able to show their videos and have sound. Attendees should have their microphone and videos off. We will use Zoom and a variety of other things, depending on what session it is. And the sessions will be recorded and will be available about a day after. So yesterday's is available already. We want you to use the Q&A feature. So if you look in the center of the screen there, marked in green, questions and answers, Q&A. Conveners in all sessions, except session 2, will monitor this for questions that you have. So Q&A for your questions, and we'll remind you throughout this. The other thing that we can do here is chat. And so one of the fundamental things about conferences is chat, and this is an opportunity for you to chat. So you need to use the chat if you want to do that. We won't be using that for questions, but you'll be able to select either to all panelists or all panelists and attendees. Please select all panelists and attendees if you're not searching for an individual person to talk to. So please use the chat to talk amongst yourselves and use the Q&A to interact with our panelists and those that are in the session. So moving on, our first theme will be natural hazards in the megacity. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers, a very good diverse group from Indonesia, Vietnam, and China, UK/China. some great panelists, conveners, and panelists that have been brought from Australia, from China, and Vietnam. And they're going to address some guiding questions on the hazards community and megacities. And so I'll let them talk about that in more detail. And then following that, after 45 minutes, we will move to theme 4. And theme 4 is about remote observation and monitoring for natural hazard forecasting and response. Great group of conveners from Indonesia, Italy, and Germany, and panelists from Italy, Switzerland, and Taiwan, and looking at how we can effectively use remote sensing in the natural hazards context. And so that's all from me. I'm going to pass on very quickly to make sure that everybody's got time to speak. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is David Higgett, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the first session for today. Just looking at the participants, I see people coming in from all over the world. So good morning everyone in Europe, good afternoon Asia, good evening Oceania. Let me introduce some of our conveners and panelists for today. On the screen you can see Dat. Hello Dat.
Hello everyone. Hello David. Hello everyone.
Let's get our panelists to switch their videos on at this stage. So we have 3 panelists today. Here's Jonathan Lasser from Charles Darwin University in Australia. Faith, can you switch on your camera, please?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, so welcome to Faith Chan, who's from University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China. And our other panelist is Professor Tan Phan Van, also from Vietnam. Okay, let me give you a short introduction to what we're going to do today. This is our session on natural hazards in the megacity. The guiding question that we have for the panel, for the audience, is what step changes can the natural hazards community do that address natural hazards in the megacities? For those of you that were with us yesterday, some of the sessions talked about the many ways that scientists working on natural hazards have made significant advances in understanding the spatial and temporal resolution of events and harnessed increased availability of data. However, it might be argued that despite these advances, much of the research that's conducted by the natural hazard community in megacities is focused on case-based risk assessment. This leads to questions of how do we transition from this excellent research to sustained impact? So what do we mean by step changes? We could be talking about technological advances, perhaps in measurement techniques, in numerical modeling, in big data analytics. We could be talking about the ability of researchers to work across disciplinary boundaries. So I think most of the people in the audience would see themselves as scientists. So it's perhaps about getting to work with social sciences and humanities a little bit better than we do at present. It could be about the link between scientific research and public policy, and the challenge of coordinating across multiple agencies to develop disaster reduction plans for megacities. Related to this is a communication issue. So how are the ideas from our research communicated into actions in urban planning? And how are the mitigation measures articulated to the local communities? Our panelists today will address some of these issues, but what I want the audience to do as well is to think about your own views on what we need to do to kind of lift this natural hazard community research to a new level. And you're very welcome during today's session to use the chat function to maybe articulate your ideas about what the community needs to do. The chat function is something, if you make it available to all attendees that people can see, but if you have specific questions, as Adam has said at the beginning, please ask your questions in the Q&A function so we can pick those up and deal with those. Okay, so our session's about megacities. The term megacity usually is defined as a city with more than 10 million people. And depending on how we define geographically the city limits. There's around 30 megacities at present, but it's predicted by the end of this century, there'll be around 80 or more. Beyond the strict definition of a megacity, we note that this year, 2020, is a tipping point where half of the world's population now lives in urban areas. So China, where I work, has now more than 100 cities greater than 1 million people. Undoubtedly, there's a very significant challenge to resolve safety and security concerns of urban agglomerations in order to create sustainable urban areas. Okay, now in today's session, we're going to have a few polling questions. Let me just launch the first poll question to give the audience an opportunity to answer. Oh, sorry, I've launched the wrong one. Let me try that again. Beg your pardon. This is all live. Here we go. Okay, question 1. We want to really get your opinion of where we think we're going in terms of our research. So are technological advances advancing so that the impact of hazards will reduce over time through better management? Or would you disagree with that statement and think that the impacts of hazards will increase as cities grow, as climate change occurs? Let's pause for a moment and see what the audience thinks. I'll leave this on for about 30 seconds or so. Okay, so it's looking, there's still a few people voting. It's looking like we have a lot of optimists in the audience that looking to agree that technological advances will continue to improve the management of risk in megacities. Okay, I'll end that poll at this point and share the results. So hopefully everyone can see that now. I have a slightly different view of the screen than the audience. So hopefully people can see those results in front of them right now. Okay, let me turn to the panel now. We'll have a couple more questions later on. Let me ask Professor Tan Van Van to make a few statements about natural hazards in the megacity. Professor Tan, over to you.
Yeah, good day, everyone. Yeah, days that mean morning, evening, and afternoon for over the world. And I want to share my screen now. Okay, can you see?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, the title, I have only 5 minutes, so very quickly to talk. The national hazard and megacity in Vietnam and challenge and potential solution. That is my talk today. You know that in Vietnam there are 2 main natural hazards. That means the hazards relate to the hydrometeorological events, and another is related to the geological processes. Here you can see the typhoon and tropical cyclone in Vietnam is most dangerous national hazard, and this typhoon is occurred in about June to November, and along coastal zone is very vulnerable. Another one is floods, and also floods and landslide in the mountain area, and also mostly in northwest and northeast and central Vietnam. Drought and salinity intrusion now is most over in Vietnam, especially in Mekong River Delta and Red River Delta, and also in coastal zone. and heat wave and hot spell. Now in under global warming, the heat wave and hot spell now is more dangerous because it maybe cause heat shock in the summertime. And other event, other natural hazards in Vietnam, and also is a hail, tornado, heavy rainfall, and another one. And you can see that some pictures showing the typhoon in Vietnam and floods and flash flooding and drought and saline intrusion. And also is a hot spell and heat wave impact in Vietnam, and also the cold surge, another one. You can see that here is records hail in North Vietnam with radius about 15 centimeters. For megacity in Vietnam, now we have two big cities. The first in Ho Chi Minh City, more than 10 million people, and another Hanoi, approximates 10 million people. And in the future, maybe in Da Nang and other cities. The national hazards impact on the mega city in Vietnam, maybe the first one is the city flooding due to the very heavy rainfall. That means now is occurs on most cities in Vietnam. And another heat islands, heat wave, and hot spell. That's very important. The typhoon for coastal city and severe storm, gust, and school life. And also land subsidence, that's very important in Mekong River Delta, and earthquake and landslide, and also drought. The impact of megacity, the national hazard on megacity in Vietnam may be damage and destroy in infrastructure, and can cause outage of power, water, and waste center, and also epidemic disaster. And as you can, I tell, let's say the heat shock in the summer and wildfire in summertime also, and this also cause a deficit of water use and so on. Now, how we can reduce the level of risk of the natural hazard in a mega city? The first, I think we should improve the quality of the forecast and early warning information. That means in Vietnam maybe priority solution. For example, the weather and weather forecasting and subsequent to season forecasting, for early warning, and also the monitoring system. The second one is supporting policy maker to understand the potential impact of national hazard under the global warming, and use this information into the planning Earth urbanization development. Because you know that the policy maker and scientists has big gap. So how this information transfer to the policy maker so that they understand the potential impact? That's very important. So that they can find the protection, prevention, and preparedness risk and recovery. And another is the mentoring, mainstream climate change information into the development planning. That means we should use projected climate change information into planning urbanization development. And that's my information. Thank you.
David, you're unmute.
I cannot hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Tan. David?
Yeah, I
Yes.
was muted. Right, sorry. Let's move on to our second speaker this morning, which is Faith Chan. Faith joining us from China.
Hello. So yeah, I just share my screen there. Can everybody see the screen? Yeah. Okay. So I start now. I want to share when we talk about Vietnam. So besides Vietnam, there's quite many Chinese megacities as they were introduced. So today I focus on there's the megacities cluster in Taiwan Delta. We call Greater Bay Area at the moment. So you look at megacities in Taiwan Delta and Greater Bay Area. Actually, it consists by 11 cities, including some international cities like Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou, which is quite famous already. But it also has the other 8 cities together. So we're talking about the Greater Bay Area. They still develop and maybe predict to have more than 120 million people by 2050. So for the challenge, we also have, similar to Vietnam, we have typhoons, we have intensive rainfall, we also have the coastal storm surge. So that's why, for example, in the megacity like Shenzhen, we have intensive rainfall. So for example, 2013 August, it has the rain caused the urban flooding. And also similar situation in 2014 May, and those rainfall is quite serious, more than 200 millimeters per 24 hours. And similar events also in Guangzhou in May in 2017. So similar kind of intensive rainstorm. This one is more than 100 millimeters per 24 hours. So that means the drainage cannot cope with the intense rainfall in the town. And other than intensive rainfall, as said, we also have typhoon. So that's why it brings up coastal surge. So this one is the example in 2017 August by Typhoon Hato. And Typhoon Hato brings the surge like 4 or 5 meters higher than the normal tide wave, and then cause the Hong Kong Island, the city like that, those the coastal water by wind blowing up, and you can see here. And so in the future, we also face the situation that we can deal with the climate change and also those weeks in megacities. But I think at the moment, Hong Kong, Macau, and the other 9 cities, they are cooperating very tightly. They want to develop better the information and share with the public, like to share the product, like the warning system, like this is all free. But normally before, because of governance and jurisdiction difference, normally Hong Kong and Macau meteorological department, they are doing their own job quite good. But at the moment, we're talking about to merge together and also help each other. So to share information, to make the system better, to cover those 11 cities in the Greater Bay Area. Because if it just rely on the coastal infrastructure like the sea embankment, yeah, it is up to 200 years return period, but it also cannot just use that solution to reduce all weeks. Okay, so we try to do different solutions, soft and hard, engineer together. And so we need to help each other and to work together between those 11 cities and also with mega cities like Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Hong Kong. So that's what I want to share, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Faith.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, let's move to our final panelist, Jonathan Lasser, who's at Charles Darwin University in Australia. Okay, over to you, Jonathan. Can't hear you. Okay.
They cannot hear him.
We seem to have a problem hearing you, Jonathan.
Yep. Hey.
No, I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah. Jonathan, can you please check your mic?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now we can hear you. Yeah,
sorry.
that's good.
Big
Okay.
trouble. Yeah. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so I anticipate that the previous speaker will be talking about the problems. So I will be a little bit touching some of the social dimension of megacities in relation to managing risk. So I'll be talking about governability and also institutional problems that I have seen, at least in Southeast Asian context, from Jakarta to Manila and also some other cities in Southeast Asia. Right. Let's frame the problems. So I think that over the last 15 years after being a PhD student myself and then becoming a scholar, I feel like there is an significant improvement in the sophistication of risk assessment and also monitoring worldwide. It's probably not perfect in the context of megacities in Southeast Asia, but overall, I think there is a good progress. But the progress in risk assessment and monitoring, I think, of risk, I think they are not followed by institutional progress. We have seen everywhere the application of smart cities approach, but we haven't seen how this translated into a long-term decision-making for resilience. And also, we still see the wicked problems of, lack of governability. There are still issues around unmanaged risk. So I'm talking probably about Jakarta here, where we have been trying to study impact of floods on schools and different dimension of development in the cities. And we think that there is, it's not huge, but there is still unstable in terms of risk governance. Commitments are not stable. So you have always ups and downs. The transformation in the institutional systems do not, in a way, it's not sustainable. So if we can think at, urban development and adaptation as games, where there are players and rules, and not every players feel like they are benefiting from the games. So some of the players kind of create their own games that might be maladaptive to hazards, risk, and vulnerability. And the challenge is how can we generate political will as a strategic gaming. So what I'm thinking here is trying to create legitimate rules that are beneficial for participants of, in this case, we talk about the game, for both short and long term. And the issue that I often think is one of the root causes of the problem is enforcing, lack of enforcement of rules. And at the same time, we also think that rulers of the city do not have alternative options that can provide better gaming. So in institutional studies, we use game as a kind of illustration for how can we create better institutional systems that provide better outcomes for the city dwellers and everybody in the city. So the typical institutional problems that we have been observing is lack of incentives, or this incentive is kind of created in the wrong direction. We don't see a good decision heuristic where people can create some kind of automatic system for decision making, but is kind of based on proper risk assessment and monitoring. And also we don't, I think the collective risk perception is also remains a problem. Leadership issue is also remains a problem. Urban politics are agnostic to climate and disasters in many senses. So these are typical institutional problems that we cannot solve in the, at least in the last 10 years. So this is what I mean with, we have seen progress in technical side, but we haven't actually seen similar progress in institutional side. And for example, if you look at the clarity of institutional design to deal with climate-related risk, in many contexts at the subnational level, we don't have clear institutional solution. There is no local, there's no proper institutional systems that could be design and deal with risk. So in this case, I think everybody agrees that we have to deal with complex and interconnected problems in the context of megacities, but the way the institutions are designed are not actually up to that problem. So what you have is misplacement of resources and incentives in regards to that. And then I will come up with the final kind of slide here for an introduction. We need to think about orchestrating some kind of institutional solution. But what I mean here is kind of creating some variation in the institutional mechanism. So in disaster studies, we often come up with rational choice options via technical rationality approach. So we expect everybody to come up with greater awareness informed by risk assessment, and then improvement in risk communications, and then you led to the implementation of risk management approach. This doesn't always work, but remain vital. But the problem is all this approach requires bureaucratic transformation, whether you go it through capacity building or any other means. And sustaining adaptation to climate-related hazards and risk reduction imperatives, it should also mean sustaining the incentive for public and private sectors. So they could actually think about some of the problems that we have been observing, that we have been identifying from the previous speakers and also in my previous slides. I think what we have seen over the last few years is there is a model of governance, like creating more alliances between cities that deliver results. The problem with this approach is very often, we talk about 100 resilient cities, we talk about Asian climate change resilient city networks and so on. This model are pretty good, but we know that this is based on projects, so I'm not criticizing that we have to move from project-based. I think we are moving into more project-based approach over the years. So what we need is, we need to design settings that create alliances that allow policymakers to have some alternative views on how can they cope with this risk better. And I think at the end, we need to think about creating an ecosystem of leadership literacy that are pertinent to climate change and disaster management. I think we have to come up with this idea. Otherwise, things will remain the same. I think we need to think about institutions very seriously, because I think scientists often do not think it seriously until your project is not is canceled. I mean, until you are not until the incentive is taken out from you, then you will think that yes, institution is kind of something that is very pertinent to our everyday life of risk reduction, risk assessment, all the science of risk, disaster risk reduction, and so on. So I think we need to bring institutional thinking into they talk about megacities, and I'm not going into technical details of politics in urban setting, in megacity settings. I think the good news is they have resources. That is the only thing. And I think if you talk about megacities like Jakarta, I think almost half of the wealth of the nation is put in the city. So we have no problem with resources. I think we have problems with the way the resources is managed and how can actually we help these policymakers and also politicians to come up with the better visions of their cities. And that is kind of the notes that I'm trying to share with you today. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, we have very limited time today, so we want to get a few of the audience questions in. I'm just going to launch another poll question. Jonathan's given some very thought-provoking ideas there. So you might say all of these issues are very important, but I'm asking you to choose one issue. Okay, what's the one most important issue? I'll leave that open for a minute or so whilst we look at some of the questions. I think there's been some interesting chat going on about the role of institutions. A kind of general question that we're getting is, what is the best approach to explain natural hazards policymakers and local government in these megacities? How do we convey that data? Maybe if I can very quickly get each of the panelists to say, 10 seconds, what your challenge is in talking to policymakers. Professor Tan, do you have a quick answer? I think your microphone's muted.
Professor Tan,
yeah,
turn on your mic. Yes.
I got some info. I got some question. The first one, in Vietnam, we have the lightning and also tornado. Yes, in Vietnam, the tornado now more frequency occurs in rural area and mountain area. But the city, mega city, and the city in general, we did not got it so far. And the second one is how we can approach it, the policy maker. And usually we organize some seminar or some conference or some workshop, and so that we invite them to tell them, and so that we can approach a more flexible way, and so that we can tell them how is dangerous, it's a natural hazard in megacity, and also in maybe now it's not also megacity, but in general it's more than in other climate change context. So we can, based on that, we can encourage them to use the information about the forecasting, weather forecasting, and sub-seasonal to seasonal forecasting, and also the climate pollution information.
Okay, thank you. I'll just share the results from that poll. Very interesting that the lack of coordination of government departments, something that Jonathan was talking about, I think, is picked out there. Faith, there's a question that's coming through perhaps about the link between engineering and environmental management. China has a lot of concrete. Too much concrete, not enough nature. What do you think?
I think China used to be quite engineering focused on coastal and also in flood management in general. But because of Smart City program, and also now the latest government, national government raised the issue of enhance of ecological civilization, actually the situation is changing. But I show the picture is basically is some part of area you have to raise the sea level, so of the seawall. Otherwise, is none of effective way like sand or Lewisman. I know there's an Italian geologist asked, but some part because of cities, they need this kind of concrete to protect the seawall, especially cities like Shenzhen and Guangzhou, Lansha area, the south part. So I think I think China is on the way to adapt soft and hard engineering at the moment, and doing pretty good, I think, yeah, at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you, Faith. Jonathan, lots of questions for you. I'll just pick out one here. Megacity has lots of cascading hazards, which affects different stakeholders in different ways. How do you make a rational choice trading off between those different hazards and different impacts? Do you have a view on how decision makers come up with optimized decisions? Very difficult question.
It's a very difficult question. So I think let us think about that. And I think my response to that is, well, when we were young, we were trained in transdisciplinary research, meaning that we engage with the policymakers in shaping our research questions regarding what needs to be prioritized, what needs to be assessed in relation to risk and disasters. So we come up with some kind of engagement with the users of knowledge in advance rather than after. But as I growing old, I think the political commitment is often volatile, and we cannot actually change that a lot. What we have to do is we have to be mindful about the reality of politics and institutions, and do something around them, according to our ability and also, you know, our best. At the moment, I think I don't have solutions apart from asking more questions, because this institutional problem is kind of the wicked problems that we cannot simply solve at our level. I think if it is easily easily solved, I think political science might got already the job done. So we are not trying to take their job, but we are trying to come up with some kind of better questions that we can actually raise together with them and probably find solution at the end of the tunnel. But at the moment, I think let's try to ask these questions all over again. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, we're getting some really interesting comments coming through. I want to put up the last polling question for today. We have to finish right now. Okay, so after today's discussion, audience, do you feel more optimistic that the hazard community can reduce risk? Are you pessimistic that hazard impacts will continue to increase? Or maybe sit on the fence, neither optimistic or pessimistic? We're getting some great chat comments coming through about the fact that we seem to have a lot of technological answers. It's how we translate that through how we deal with the information, how we deal with it in a short time. Interesting that lots of people thought that technological change was going to improve our ability to cope with hazards. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave our session there. Time is up. Let me end that poll and share the results with you. Ladies and gentlemen, on balance, you are optimists. The future is bright. Let me hand over on that note to Adam Switzer to introduce the next session. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, panelists.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.